Is there a motion to accept the minutes as at hand?
I make a motion to approve.
Support.
Motion by Pat, supported by Tyler, to approve the minutes of the August 7 meeting. All those in favor, aye? Aye. Those opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Then looking at the minutes for the August 21 regular meeting, do I hear a motion?
Motion to accept.
Support.
Motion by Tyler, supported by Steve, to accept the minutes of the, approve the minutes of August 21. All those in favor, aye? Aye. Those opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Next item here is general public comment. This is an opportunity to address items that are not on the agenda this evening. So is there anyone in the audience that would wish to offer comment on something that's not on the agenda?
Sure.
Please come forward. If you could give us your name and address, please.
I'm John McCracken from 4111 Imperial in Walker. I'm here to talk about the potential for Blain's to be built south of Myers. I heard about it. I saw the announcement in the Grand Rapids Press, and I'm glad it was there. Wilson is really congested, and I'm worried about it continuing to be congested. And I don't know what the plans are with MDOT. I had a chance to speak with a spokesman from MDOT at the Standell meeting a few weeks back, and he said it's all about the money. And he's right to widen it. But I really think that we need to be thoughtful about what we put in around that area. I use that every day. My wife does, my daughter does, a lot of people do. And it just continues to get more congested. As far as Blain's go, I've seen what they sell on their website. It's very similar to TSC or Tractor Supply Company. But I really see nothing at that store that I can't buy at TSC or Myers or Pet Supplies Plus, or it's Chowhound, or Home Depot. I think it's just kind of more of the same stuff. So if I need a grill or tools, there's Home Depot, there's Myers. Fish and Poles, Housewares, Myers. Pet Supplies at Myers again, or Chowhound. TSC, there's one in Hudsonville. There's one in Coopersville. Advanced Auto Parts has lots of trailer supplies and hitches. So I just think that, we need to be more thoughtful about what we put in there. Regarding West Town at Wilson, which is right across the street, those are apartments and condos. I don't think that those people are going to cross the street to get a chicken, which kind of sounds like the beginning of a bad joke, or a trailer. I just, I think that there's got to be more people here to talk about it, but that's my opinion. I think that a nice restaurant, a real senior center that's not a part of the fire department's complex there, but a real one like Georgetown Township has, or even Manistee, a small community of 6,000 people, they have a really nice senior center. But I just think that we need to be careful about what we plop in there and consider it. That's it.
John, thank you. And as it turns out, that's actually the first item on for hearing. There's a hearing published for this evening. However, there's a request to have that tabled. So we were going to allow for public comment, so that's why I gave you an opportunity to state that then, because in a couple seconds we're going to be opening the hearing on that, and likely looking at an action to table action, and where it'll be taken up by this commission perhaps at the next meeting.
Well, okay. So if it wasn't on the agenda, it means it's off it and I can speak about it? Just kidding. I got it. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. All right. Moving on then to case number 19-841, Blain's Farm and Fleet Final Area Site Plan Review. This is advertised as a public hearing. We've got a request to table action. I believe that's a matter, correct me if I'm wrong, that is offered by not only Blain Supply, but that staff is in agreement that it would be better to not take action this evening. But because this is advertised as a public hearing, we've got to open the hearing, give opportunity for comment, and John perhaps provided the comment associated with that. And then we would look for a motion to table, but to adjourn the hearing until perhaps that next meeting.
I'll make a motion to open the public hearing if we're ready.
Okay.
Support.
Got a motion by Steve, supported by Tyler, to open the public hearing on the Blain's Farm and Fleet request. All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Dan, Scott, you want to offer some comments? Again, concerning the requested table, if you could just give us a sense of what's at hand.
Yeah, I think we both had reports in the works. We've been looking at these plans for about a month, and we reached a point where there was a consensus between Blain's and staff that we just weren't quite ready based on a couple of traffic-related and transportation-related review items that we're still working through. So without the applicant here tonight, I don't want to spin off into that conversation too much, but just know that there are some traffic study, traffic data, and road right-of-way securing issues that we're working through that we thought were important to get some more finality on before we took it for action to the Planning Commission. So I encourage you to do what you're doing, which is have this public hearing open and adjourn it to the next meeting where you can take it off the table, so to speak, and reopen the hearing. We anticipate that could be as soon as the next meeting, September 18th.
So if we were inclined to table action as requested by both the applicant and staff, the date certain we'd be looking at would be September 18th. Okay. Scott, you have anything to?
No, that covers it. I'll save mine for next time.
Okay. As commissioners, as far as what's at hand and the request to table, any questions?
It is a public hearing. I want to ask the public if they want to speak.
Yeah. Public wants to, John, anything else you wanted to add?
Why is it being tabled?
Again, it was both the applicant and staff, as we work projects to review before the Planning Commission, there's a lot of work that's done ahead of time between staff and the applicant to get it to a point where it's ready for public review and action. They felt that when the public hearing was set, that they were at that point, but as they got closer to the time at hand, they discovered that it wasn't. They wanted to get more information, and both parties were in agreement that it was best to take a step back and take the time to get that information.
Thank you.
I'll make a motion to close the public hearing.
To adjourn the public hearing
Adjourn the public hearing
until
the case appears back on the agenda.
on September 18th.
Hopefully September 18th.
Yeah. Okay, we have a motion and support to adjourn the hearing, table action until September 18. All those in favor, aye? Aye. Those opposed, same sign. Motion carried. John, we sent public hearing notices out on it. By adjourning it to a date certain, we're not going to send any additional ones out. But you or if anyone you know that would have an interest in this, this will be taken up in 2 weeks.
Excellent, thank you.
Yep. Next item is case number 19-840, Metal U.S.A., 3116 3 Mile Road. Site plan review and stormwater variance request, and really the stormwater variance request is what driving our review this evening. They own a building that's a little over 50,000 square feet in area. Want to add another 2,200, 2,300 square feet addition to it. And again, looking at site plan, but the focus is more so on the stormwater variance request. And with that as an introduction, Dan, if you could detail the project at hand.
Yeah, so this is a 50,000 some odd square foot building where there is a proposal to add on a little over 2,000 square feet, 2,256 square feet to the rear sort of along that southeast corner of the site. That is going to involve primarily office space. And by the way, this is the only image I'm going to have up on the screen tonight. I'm just going to refer back to this to give you a little bit of context of where we are in Walker. We're near that Erickson and 3 Mile in sort of that industrial corridor of 3 Mile Road. But I just want to have this image on the screen to center us all in one thing, and I don't have many comments tonight, so I'll make things brief but get to the point. There's this 2,256 square foot addition that's primarily office area. That's a pretty insignificant addition in the grand scheme of this site. It's less than 25% of the building footprint and less than 5,000 square feet. So by those standards, we would typically exempt a formal site plan review, but there are a couple things that come into play here. One is that you don't exempt formal site plan review. By that I mean the kind of site plan review you folks at the Planning Commission take a look at. If the addition that's being proposed generates the need for 5 or more off-street parking spaces per the parking ordinance that we have, or if there's a special circumstance that requires some other level of public hearing or review. In this case, there is the issue of the stormwater variance, which prompts Planning Commission review as well. So while it's a small addition, it's a significant change of use to the office part of the building, and it's something that triggers this stormwater variance issue, so that's why it's before you. Briefly, I'll talk about the couple of things I honed in on from a zoning standpoint. One being the fact that there is office means that we do need to be accountable to the parking demand for the site. Like I said, there's a 1 space per 300 square foot requirement for parking for office areas and industrial sites. If you take a look at that site, you can see that it's at a pretty high parking capacity already. So we want to make sure that there's accountability for the current and projected future parking need on the site. And they do provide a parking table that shows the numbers adding up per the parking code. I just want to make sure there's discussion of that, and if there's a staffing level that ticks up their parking demand a little bit more, might be appropriate to at least designate an area that could be future parking or deferred parking. One of the other things I focus on is landscaping. I didn't drill down on this too much for a addition of this scope, but typically there's a green belt requirement for a site like this that's 2 trees and 4 shrubs per 100 lineal feet of frontage. Based on the very small addition and the limited frontage impact that the addition has, and really it doesn't actually expand the building footprint along the front of the site at all. So I thought the addition of a couple of trees just to provide additional screening at that southwestern corner of the site would be appropriate, and they provide those. So those should be a 2.5-inch caliper shade tree. The screening in the rear of the site should be maintained such that you can't see anything being stored in the rear to a 6-foot height from the adjacent public rights-of-way. I'm not worried about that based on driving to the site and seeing what the topography is like, what the existing fencing is like. You really can't see anything back there. And just as long as the storage that occurs there is consistent with what you see on an aerial like this, where you really don't see much, but making sure that the paving surface is dustless and non-erodible back there where trucks drive and where things are stored would be important. And then that leaves us with the stormwater variance. And just as a refresher, when there's a site plan that has an addition of impervious surface over a certain small threshold, like 2,000 square feet, we trigger the full compliance with the current stormwater ordinance that we have. And the current stormwater ordinance that we have calls for a few benchmarks to be met for stormwater detention and stormwater quality. So there are things like that you have to detain a 100-year stormwater event. The most conventional way people do that is in a big pond or basin. You have to have a 10-year storm pipe capacity size and 0.13 cubic feet per second outflow rate maximum for the stormwater leaving the site. And often those 3 things, if they aren't met, come together in a stormwater variance request like this, because if you can't detain your 100-year event, you're also not containing and controlling the outflow of stormwater off the site. So That's what's happening here. There's a case made that there's a proportional stormwater impact, and they're detaining a 25-year storm event rather than 100. So that's up to the Planning Commission to review, open and close a public hearing on, and review the request for those stormwater variance items. There's also a stormwater quality standard that it's called first flush stormwater treatment that it looks like is being met with this design. But that's what I understand of the application. The rest of the comments, Scott understands it in more depth than I do, so I will just leave it at that explaining the role of the Planning Commission to review these stormwater variance requests when they come in.
Any questions at the end at this point? Scott, city engineer?
Yeah, 3 quick items from me. It's real easy for this site to get lost because of the address. When you drive down 3 Mile Road and you look, historically, at least from my perspective, you look for something like this, you can't find it because you think Erickson Court is its own street. In this case, it's not. It's a private street. It wasn't built with a plat or an industrial park or anything like that. It was kind of split up through some maybe not compliant processes with the ZBA over the years. And so I wanted to put that out there so that if you're looking for it, you realize that it's back there off Erickson Court. Second item I had was with relation to the stormwater variance. For the new folks on the commission, you might be surprised that we don't give a big report when it comes to stormwater variance. Our job is to enforce the ordinance as it is, and if they ask for any kind of a variance from that, we let them make the pitch to you rather than staff doing it, because again, our job is to make sure that we bring these sites into compliance. So we'll leave that to them. What they're asking for is variance from the 100-year detention, 10-year storm capacity in the pipe, and the max outflow downstream. So they've provided some detention on site and some improvements, and I think it's up to them to then pitch that to you to say, hey, are we making a pretty substantial improvement here? Are we having a zero impact? We're making it better? You certainly don't want to see it get worse. I think that's a big concern, but I'll leave that to them. The third item is related to the gravel on the site, and this comes up probably every other meeting where somebody comes in and they've got a huge gravel lot, and we've been doing our best to try to bring those into compliance, and in this case, they're going to put heavy-duty pavement over that new gravel area, and that'll help to bring that into compliance as well. So we're in good shape there. So really, it's about the stormwater variance.
Any questions for Scott before we hear the presentation by the applicant? I've got one question. Right now, the water that drains off from the site looks like it goes into the pond, maybe to the south, and that pond is not entirely on this property.
That's correct. We believe that that's kind of a series of natural ponds. We don't think that was, because this wasn't a plat, it wasn't an industrial park, it wasn't anything that would require that kind of forethought 25, 30 years ago. It's probably more like something that was pushed off to the side, and wetlands were turned into a small, water storing area or something like that. So there's benefit to having that there, but we can't just have a blind eye and send all the water in there and think things are going to be fine, because that'll be up at a static level, and then the water will shoot downstream at just the same velocity. And
What is downstream from this?
there's an old railroad corridor that goes underneath Elm Ridge. A lot of the water goes through there, so there are concerns down there. There are a lot of washouts, so we need to do our due diligence here and make sure that we don't let that get any worse.
Give the applicants an opportunity to make a presentation, please.
Good evening. My name is Rob Lamer. I'm with XL Engineering. The owner's here too, so if you've got some questions for them, certainly he's here for those. From a detention standpoint, this is a very, very small site. If you look at our plan and just the area that we're showing as detention proposed, it's probably equal to the space of the actual addition that's proposed. Typically, that's maybe 20% from a detention to new impervious standpoint. So if you're trying as, what I would say, not civil engineers who don't deal with this every day, recognize that we are proposing detention that's fairly large for the fact that it's in a small addition. I wish I had a good pointer. So I'm going to talk as words, but if you want me to turn around one of these screens, I'll gladly point at it.
I have
There,
an idea, Chair, so good me interjecting, sorry, Mr. Leonard. If you want to come up here,
Oh.
there's a plan and we'll put the overhead.
Perfect. Perfect. This site came to me as I guess, there's an old plan that was sent to Walker like in 2004 or so with this proposed addition, and we're basically showing the detention the way the other group showed it. I don't have those calculations, we couldn't find those calculations, city doesn't have a copy of the calculations. But in essence, right here, we're proposing to do as big a detention basin as really is possible with the space that's there. Right now, this water goes through this pipe and down through. Can you see that? I don't know what you can see, what you can't see. Because it will go right through the new addition, we're proposing to intercept it, abandon this line in between, probably make it a roof drain lead, so this addition will actually continue to drain the way it does today from that standpoint. But this water accepts this whole area. The drainage area to the detention basin is basically the whole back east half of the site. We're proposing to run it through the detention basin that we're building in lieu of letting this go through the roof drain as it is. So we are really detaining more than just the addition. We're running half of the site through this detention basin. This whole pond that's back here, even if it was never really designed for something, it was designed to accept water and currently does accept water from this property and all of the surrounding properties in that area. And I could analyze it to try to figure out, okay, how much of that is being used. We could survey the outlet, we could run a whole model. I'd have to model all the neighboring property that drains into it in addition to that to figure out who shares and all that sort of thing. I would probably spend more money trying to figure out that number, and I wouldn't know what the number would be to see if it meets the current standards. It is much easier for me and less expensive for us to build this detention and only improve the site and come here and ask for a variance. So in essence, that's what we're doing. You know, if you said no, obviously that would probably be the direction we end up going. So if you've got questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Any comments or questions? What's the, of the detention requirements, what's the one that's crucial here in terms of the effect on downstream properties?
I think the rate and the volume are probably the 100-year volume are probably the big ones. And the 100-year volume doesn't come into play very often, obviously, because you're only supposed to get a 100-year storm once every 100 years, but it tends to be more like every 5 or 10 years. So that's a big one, and the outlet restriction is as well. But I think the science here would suggest that this is going to still greatly restrict the outlet capacity or the outlet flow today from what it is today with this design, because they'll take a big chunk of that area, put it into a pond, slow it down, provide some detention. You know, it's certainly going to be better, but it doesn't bring the site into full compliance like we would want to see with probably a larger, type of development. So I think that's, if you're looking for some help, I think it's probably looking towards the fact that this is an improvement for the folks downstream.
Right.
I'll make a motion to open the public hearing.
Support. Motion by Steve. Motion by Steve, supported by Tyler to open the public hearing. All those in favor, aye. Aye. Those opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Thanks, Steve. Any comment from the audience? There being none?
Motion to close public hearing.
Support.
Motion by Steve, supported by Tyler to close the public hearing. All those in favor, aye. Aye. Those opposed, same sign. Motion carried.
Looking for commentary now?
Yes.
So for my part, I see this as an improvement for the site, for a relatively small addition to what is a pretty significant building. So for my part, I think that I'm pretty comfortable granting the variance here, and that might just be me, but I think that anytime we can use developments like this or improvements like this to make improvements on the sites, I think that we should jump at that opportunity.
Tyler?
Rather than repeat what Steve said, I agree. Mr. Chairman, I would make a motion for case number 19-840, 3116 3 Mile Road Northwest, Metals U.S.A. Site Plan Review. I make a motion to approve the site plan set revision dated 8/20/2019 and supporting application material for 2,256 square feet of building addition, plus or minus 3,000 cubic feet of stormwater detention area and related improvements at the property located at 3116 3 Mile Road Northwest. Conditions of approval. The applicant agrees to all conditions noted in the planning director's letter dated 8/28/2019. The applicant agrees to all conditions noted in the city engineer's letter dated 8/26/2019.
Motion by Tyler, supported by Jason
To approve, thank you, approve the site plan related to this project at 3116 3 Mile Road. Any comments, questions? I have one question, and maybe this goes beyond the scope of this particular one. The way the pond that the water dumps into seems to connect to another pond and perhaps another pond. Ultimately, is there some type of a restricting mechanism at the end of these three ponds that would help in the downstream events in the future?
We don't know, and I think that's where Rob was saying they could go out and do a whole bunch of survey work and analysis to try to figure that out. And then you could probably call this a treatment train, where there's lots of different things that kind of help, but it's just easier for them to put this small area in and make an improvement and call it good. But the good thing that we know is there is some benefit to that stuff downstream. Certainly in like the soil erosion capacity, that stuff, contaminants and those kinds of things all settle out. That's a good thing. But because they're natural ponds, nobody goes out there with a piece of equipment later and dredges the bottom out. It stays there forever. So.
Okay, all right, thank you. Call the question. All those in favor of the motion at hand indicate by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Thank you.
Nope, we got the stormwater variance to go also.
Oh, yeah,
I'll make a
okay.
motion to approve the requested stormwater variance for relief from the following items for the proposed improvements at the site located at 3116 3 Mile Road Northwest, 100-year stormwater detention requirement, 10-year pipe capacity requirements, and 0.13 cubic feet per second per acre maximum outflow rate. Conditions of approval. The applicant agrees to all conditions noted in the city engineer's letter dated 8/26/19.
Motion by Tyler, supported by Steve to approve the requested variance with the noted conditions. Comments or questions? There being none, all those in favor, aye. Aye. Those opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Thank you.
That's right. Oh, great. Okay, thanks.
Staff, any comments, updates?
Northwest Walker is a nebulous place to label, but it's where we're sitting right now, down to Leonard, all the way out to Bristol and Panel area and up to 4 Mile. That is our last of 4 neighborhood clusters. We're gonna have an open house to talk about this whole area in a couple of weeks from tonight, 5 o'clock on Wednesday the 18th. So like with the other open houses, you're not obligated to be at really any of it, but it's a good idea if you can pop in before the regular meeting at 7. And the 7 o'clock meeting will entail, I think, this Blain's review and another small industrial addition site plan review, like the one you saw tonight. We will probably forego a long summary of master plan updates like we've been doing. I think we're going to spend some more time on bouncing some feedback on some of the in-progress planning documents, and then we'll revisit those at a later meeting because we don't want to have a really long meeting agenda that night. So that's what's happening on the 18th.
That's here?
That's going to be here, yeah, because that's our neighborhood. That's where City Hall is.
Okay.
So I think we're trying to think of how this neighborhood works, and it's sort of the old Remembrance Corridor that follows the old Laker line, that maybe some of you who were around in 2011, 2012 were starting to plan that as sort of the gateways of Walker. You have kind of the main entrances to the main part of Walker where Remembrance intersects Leonard and intersects Wilson right out here. And then you have kind of the industrial corridor like the site that we saw tonight. Those two zones are kind of growing into each other. So I think that's going to be one of the land use themes that gets brought up on the 18th.
Please don't propose a roundabout at Remembrance.
That's something to think about.
That's it, that's it.
I disagree with the shape of these neighborhoods. I think that Bristol and Walker definitely need to be pushed the other direction.
What?
For Northwest? You don't think they're more part of the Alpine corridor than they are?
Well, one way to think of it is how many people are in each of these,
Yeah.
and Alpine is a very dense cluster,
Once you
so
get
we
past
actually
Bristol.
organize these by census block.
Yeah, I know that's, so I was talking to Chris and Frank about that a little bit ago. I stand by my statement.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah, and I think some of the grain of the planning document will get into more detail on the different neighborhoods that feel more like they're part of one another. I think this was just an exercise more in data analysis and using census boundaries, because census updates and feeding back information to the community about where we stand on economic data, demographic data, that's all part of the master plan too. So we want to start to box those groupings together. I did have one other brief update, which is that we got some letters about, whoops, that's the wrong computer. Letters about master plan updates from the city of Grand Rapids and Alpine Township. Just want to alert you folks that there are some master plan updates occurring. They send this stuff to me, and it's really addressed to our community's planning commission. So South Division Corridor Plan comment period in Grand Rapids, that's pretty far from us, but they do talk about that stretch of division between Wellesley and 28th. So I can give you these links as well. In Alpine Township, this one is pretty pertinent. They're starting their planning process on 4 Mile Road, so I think they've had their ear to the ground. You've seen Sue Becker from Alpine Township and Greg at some of our meetings. They want to know what we're planning along that area so they can start to hedge match and see how things will grow out in their stretch of 4 Mile. So I can send these links to all of you so you know what's going on. That is it for me.
Anything else?
Wow. Wow. Scott, you need to make a motion to adjourn.
I'll do it. All right, I'm getting the minutes, motion to adjourn.
Motion by Scott, supported by,
Everybody?
all in favor? Aye. All right, done.